الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الأمين قائد الغر الميامين وصلى الله على أهله وأصحابه أجمعين. Before we get into this topic, I think it's very important that we have like an introduction or a preface, a prologue. Allah says in the Quran about our ummah, وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا. And thus we have made your nation, the nation of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, a middle moderate nation, a balanced nation. لِتَكُونُوا شُهَدَاءَ عَلَى النَّاسِ وَيَكُونَ الرَّسُولُ عَلَيْكُمْ شَهِيدًا. So that you, the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, can be witnesses of this balanced ummah, this balanced sharia upon all of the people, and that the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam is a witness over you. So our religion is a religion of perfection, balance, moderation, and we have no extremes. Rather, we are between the two extremes. And in politics today, for example, you have the left wing and you have the right wing. And within that, you have different systems that fall into the spectrum. Democracy, communism, socialism, colonialism, monarchism, all these different isms within the spectrum. But what about the Sharia? What about our deen, al-Islam? Where does it fall in the spectrum? Well, we say our Sharia is far above the spectrum. It doesn't need to be measured by their yardstick. Because Allah says in the Quran, هُوَ الَّذِي أَرْسَلَ رَسُولَهُ بِالْهُدَى وَدِينِ الْحَقِّ لِيُظْهِرَهُ عَلَى الدِّينِ كُلِّهِ وَلَوْ كَرِهَ الْمُشْرِكُونَ. That He is Allah, the one who sent down His messenger with the guidance and the true religion of al-Islam, so that it may dominate over all other religions and systems, despite what the mushrikeen and their hatred for that. So this is just a quick prologue, and now into the context of this topic, the qualities of a man. And it's very important that we understand the context of today. Talking about a man today is different when we talk about a man 1,400 years ago. Because today, as we know, there's a wild spread of feminism throughout the world. And coupled now with the different agendas that are out there, society has lost the meaning of what it is to be a man. In fact, we live in a time where you could get in trouble for calling a man and a woman a woman. So we want to understand from our deen, from this perfectly balanced sharia, what are the qualities of a man? What is masculinity? Because we have this extreme that are coming and they're trying to get rid of masculinity. And as always with extremes, you always get the other extremes that come out and they call back towards the masculinity, they call back towards being a man, but they go too extreme in there as well. So we don't need, and this is very important, we don't need feminism to tell us the rights of women, because Allah told us that already. And we don't need these new groups and individuals that have come out to tell us about masculinity, because Allah told us about that already. So let's get straight into the topic now of this that we have in the question that we have today. What are the qualities of a man? What does it mean to be a man? And most importantly, what does it mean to be a man according to Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam? The word in Arabic for man is rajul and rijal for men. And it's very important that we understand the difference between the two meanings here. One meaning is man in the sense of a gender. Man in the fact that we differentiate from women. And it's very important we understand this because in the Quran, the word man is used for both. For the first meaning, which is the actual separation of gender, men and women. For example, Allah says in the Quran, when Lut said to Lut alayhi salam said to his people, إِنَّكُمْ لَتَأْتُونَ الرِّجَالَ شَهْوَةً مِّن دُونِ النِّسَاءِ, that you're approaching men instead of women to fulfill your desires. Here, he is not talking about man in the sense that we want to talk about today. He's talking about it in a gender. Okay? The second meaning, and this is our focus for today, is man in terms of the attribute, the quality, the sifa. What does it mean to be the man? You can be a man, you can be dhakar, you can be male, you can be a man biologically. But does that mean that you have the qualities of a man? What it takes to be a man? This is what the focus of the question is for today. And I want to start off with two qualities that we're going to extract directly from the Quran. Two qualities, the first two we're going to extract them directly from the Quran. And the first one is what we always start off our da'wah with. Whether it was the prophets and the messengers or the du'at that we have today and throughout the years, what do they always start their da'wah with? At-Tawheed. Allah says in the Quran, من المؤمنين رجال صدقوا ما عاهدوا الله عليه ما عاهدوا الله عليه. That from the believers are men. From the believers are men who are true to their covenant with Allah. They are true to their contact and their contract that they have with Allah. And they have made an oath with Allah. فَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ قَضَى نَحْبُهُ. That they are from amongst those believers, from amongst those men are those who've completed their vow with Allah. Meaning they were fighting for the path of Allah and they were killed in the path of Allah. These men, they have fulfilled their vows. وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ يَنْتَظِرُ. And from amongst them are those who await their chance. Either they will get victory or either they will be killed in the way of Allah. This is talking about the Sahaba. وَمَا بَدَّلُوا تَبْدِيلًا. But they never ever change their determination in any way. Their determination to be sincere towards Allah. Their determination to hold their oaths true towards Allah. They will never change this. So this is our first quality. The quality of the sidq ma'allah. Sincerity with Allah. Al-ikhlas. And undoubtedly, like we said, this ayah was revealed about the Sahaba, the best of all men. And even better than them were the prophets and messengers. As the Prophet ﷺ said, كَمُلَ مِنَ الرِّجَالِ كَثِيرٌ. That many men were completed and perfected. And he meant by that the Anbiya and Rasul, the prophets and the messengers. So we were going to be using them as our role models. We are going to be referencing to them when we want to take out these qualities. So the first quality, it tells us about having sincerity with Allah. And I want you to remember these first two qualities. This first one here, we've talked about is sincerity. As-sidq ma'allah. Being true to yourself with Allah. The second quality that we want to extrapolate and extract from the Quran, في بيوت أذن الله أن ترفع ويذكر فيها اسمه. In the masajid, in the buildings of Allah, that Allah has permitted to be raised, like what we're in right now today. And He has permitted for His name to be remembered therein. What is happening there in these masajid? What does Allah say? يُسَبِّحُ لَهُ فِيهَا بِالْغُدُوِّ وَالْآصَالِ. That in these masajid, Allah is glorified and praised day and night. By who? رجال لا تلهيهم تجارة ولا بيع عن ذكر الله وإقام الصلاة وإيتاء الزكاة. By men. Men are the ones that are glorifying Allah day and night in the masajid. They are the ones that no money, no business, no worldly desires or transactions will distract them from what? From the remembrance of Allah, from establishing the salah, and from giving the zakah. These were men that Allah has mentioned in the Quran. And why? Why do they do this? يَخَافُونَ يَوْمًا تَتَقَلَّبُ فِيهِ الْقُلُوبُ وَالْأَبْصَارِ. Because they fear. That's right, men, they fear. But what do they fear? They fear the day of judgment that will come, and the hearts and eyes will turn over and tremble in fear. So you shabab here today, especially my young shabab here, you want to become men? This is the first thing. This point right here, this masjid right here, this is the factory where men are made. Not me, not anybody saying this, but Allah has said, رِجَالْ لَا تُلْهِيهِمْ تِجَارَةٌ وَلَا بَيْعٌ عَنْ ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ. So coming here for Salat al-Fajr, coming here for Salat al-Isha, on the cold nights, or when everybody's sleeping and comfortable in their beds, and you get out, that's what a man does. That's when you know that you are a real man. So this is the second quality, and we can define this as having taqwa. So these are our first two qualities, and it's very important that we remember them. The first quality, as-sidq ma'allah. What's the first quality? Having sincerity with Allah. The second quality is taqwa, or having the fear of Allah and obeying Allah in everything that He has commanded. These two qualities are important because they are the qualifiers, the determiners. What do we mean by that? What do we mean by qualifying and determining? They tell us if the rest of the qualities are worth it or not. They tell us if the rest of the qualities make you a man or not. And we'll see when we go through the qualities, inshallah. So this was the first two qualities that I want you to put in mind. Sincerity with Allah and taqwa of Allah. Ibn al-Qayyim, and I want to give just a short statement from Ibn al-Qayyim. He says, do you want to know what a man is? Ibn al-Qayyim is telling you, do you want to know what a man is? He says a man is when he's all alone. And I want you to think about this, my shabab especially. When a man is all alone by himself, and he's tempted and he's urged to do something which is haram, tempted to look at that which is haram, tempted to communicate in a way that is haram, to listen to that which is haram, to do that which is haram. and nobody's watching him. And he remembers Allah is watching him. So he becomes ashamed, embarrassed, and he leaves off that act. He cuts himself, even though he's so thirsty to do this. He has such an urge to do this. That is a man as defined by Ibn al-Qayyim. So we're going to move on now to quality number 1. Those two first qualities, we call them qualifiers. We call them determiners, because they determine for us what are the rest of the qualities. Are they true qualities of a man? Do they really make you a man? You need to have these two qualifiers in place. You need to have these two conditions in place. So quality number 1 is al-muru'ah. And I want to use the Arabic terms because they are so more elaborative than using the English word. So I'll try to translate these words inshallah. Number 1 is al-muru'ah. What is al-muru'ah, my brothers? Al-muru'ah, we can't find a word in English to directly translate it, but you can say the closest thing is to have self-dignity and self-respect. Not to let yourself loose. You know, when you have this quality of al-muru'ah, you won't ever disrespect yourself. And what do I mean by that? When you look at people who go clubbing and go to raves, and they go to, all these ridiculous clubs and things like that, and they make themselves look foolish. The way they behave, or when somebody gets drunk, for example, and they go on a high, the way they act, the way they are, with the way their actions are, it's ridiculous, it's foolish. If you were to put a CCTV camera and see how that person behaves and show it to him afterwards, I guarantee you 9 times out of 10, he's going to be embarrassed of what he did. Because he didn't have the muru'ah at the time to stop himself, to control his behavior. And this is what a man does. He controls his behavior. He makes sure that he's cautious of how he reacts, how he acts in front. And if we look at Yusuf alayhi salam, remember we said the best of all people, the best of all men, most complete men are the prophets and messengers. Yusuf alayhi salam, when he was brought in front of the women, we know the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, when he was brought in front of the women, and they tried to call him towards doing that which is immoral and haram. But he kept his dignity. He kept his self-respect. And he said, I'm not doing this so that I can become foolish afterwards. And I can look silly and look immoral. So he kept his self-dignity and he stayed away from that. And part of this meaning is also a very important thing. Not to have emotional outbursts. As a man, you should try and keep yourself, as they say, stoic and robust, firm and strong. You should stay away from having an emotional outburst where you will start acting on your emotions. You get upset and you start complaining to everyone and telling everyone about your life problems. That people no longer want to speak to you now because that's the guy that just tells us about his problems all the time. Or that you become really upset and you start doing things out of your sadness. Or you become angry. And this is another thing that many men fall short in. They become angry and they act upon that anger, and only later on do they regret it. So part of being al-muru'ah, part of that stoic, is that you are controlling yourself in anger. And this is as the Prophet ﷺ said, لَيْسَ الشَّدِيدُ بِالسُّرْعَةِ, that the one who is a strong man is not the one who can overpower his opponent in wrestling. That man is strong, no doubt. إِنَّمَا الشَّدِيدُ الَّذِي يَمْلِكُ نَفْسَهُ عِنْدَ الْغَضَبِ. The one who is a strong man is the one who controls himself when he's angered. He controls his tongue, his actions, his thoughts. He controls himself. So this is what we mean by al-muru'ah. And I want to add a side note to this point. It's very important. The points that we mentioned, that is the asl, that is the basis. But does that mean now that a man can't feel upset? Does it mean now that a man can't get upset and sad about things? No, we are humans. We have been created like that. And the best of all mankind, who is rahmatan lil alameen, who is the mercy to all of mankind sent from Allah, and Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, when he was towards the end of his life, his young son Ibrahim, infant, he died. Imagine as a father having to bury your own son. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, when he heard this, his eyes began to tear up. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, no one is more manly than him, yet he was crying, not wailing, but his eyes were tearing up. And Abdurrahman ibn Auf said, وَأَنْتَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ, to say, you are the messenger of Allah. Shouldn't you be happy with the decree of Allah? Shouldn't you not cry? Why are you crying, O messenger of Allah? And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, إِنَّهَا رَحْمَةٌ, that is a mercy from Allah. And He is the mercy of all mankind. It's a mercy that He feels this pain. But listen to what He said. He said, إِنَّ الْقَلْبَ يَحْزُنُ. The heart will feel sadness. وَالْعَيْنَ تَدْمَعُ. The eye will shed tears because of the sadness. وَمَا نَقُولُ إِلَّا مَا يَرْضَى رَبُّنَا. But we will never say except that which Allah is pleased with. I'm going to control, even in this moment of sadness, I'm going to control my emotion. So I say things that please Allah. I say, Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. I say, Alhamdulillah ala kulli hal. Because I'm controlling my emotions. This is what we mean. I want to move on now to the second quality. So the first quality, al-muru'ah. The second quality is what we call ash-shahama. Again, a word that is very powerful. And we can loosely translate it to be courteous or chivalrous, to have chivalry. And I'll give you an example again from the best of all of men, the prophets and messengers, but this time from the Prophet Musa alayhi salam. The Prophet Musa alayhi salam. We know what a strong, powerful man he was. And when he was fleeing from Egypt, he came to a place called Midian, and he found that the people were around the well, fetching the water, and on the side, there were two women with their flock, and they were on the side. So he approaches them, and this is where the part of the shahama is. Think about this. He approaches these two women, they are all alone, they have no man to fend for them and to defend them. And he says to them, مَا خَطْبُكُمَا. That's all he says. مَا خَطْبُكُمَا. What's the matter with you two? What's happened? And they told him, our father is elderly, this is our flock, we can't fetch the water because all the men are there. We're not immodest women, we don't go and start mixing with the men. No, we want the men to finish and then we will fetch the water. So Musa alayhi salam, he went ash-shahama, chivalry. He goes to the water well, he fetches the water for the flock, and he helps those two women out. He didn't flirt with those women, didn't start chatting them up, didn't start talking to them and saying, I want to know more about you. All he said, Ma khatbukuma. What's wrong? How can I help? That's all it was. And after he finishes, he doesn't go there to say, I want to see if I can win them over. He stays on the side and he makes dua to Allah. And it was only when the father of those two women wants to meet Musa alayhi salam that he goes and he speaks to the father. This is what we call shahama. Not what these other people who claim to be men and they say it's manly to go and try and win over a woman and things like that, and how you talk to a woman and you chat her up. That's not manliness. That's not how we understand manliness. You want to do that with your wife, you do it discreetly. You don't need to go and publicize it and do it with other women. This is what we mean by shahama. And one brother gave me an example of if you see, for example, a sister on the street and she's struggling, her shopping has fell down on the floor, or she's in danger, then you as a man, you don't take advantage of her now. You don't go there and see this as an opportunity, but you help her, you lower your gaze, and you help her on, and you continue on with what you have to do. This is what we mean by shahama, and this is a quality that is desired in a man. The third quality, al-izzah, honor. And I don't want to use the word self-pride because it could be misunderstood, but what we mean here is don't allow yourself to be humiliated. Only submit and humiliate yourself to who? To Allah. No one else you should allow yourself to be humiliated as a man. And we know that Allah says in the Quran, من كان يريد العزة فلله العزة جميعا. Whoever wants izzah, whoever wants honor, then all honor belongs to who? Belongs to Allah. So don't lose your self-respect. Don't lose your honor for the sake of some gain in this world, for some money, for a house, for a car, for girls. Don't lose your honor for those things. And it's important that we understand here that you don't get to the point where you become arrogant. If we look at the example of Qarun, there's a fine line between honor and arrogance. Qarun, what did he say? قال إنما أوتيته على علم عندي. That this wealth that I have, that I'm such a rich man, that everybody loves me because I got so much wealth, this is all because of my hard work, because of my knowledge, because I know how to be a successful man. Don't be that arrogant person. If you are successful, if you are someone who has a lot of skills, don't belittle yourself, but remember to bring it back to Allah. As-sidq, remember what we said, the qualifier, to be sincere with Allah. Say, no, alhamdulillah, this is from Allah that I have. What I have is from Allah. And Allah gives and takes as He pleases. And this neither does it mean now that you are arrogant in a way that you look down on others. It's very important that we understand this quality. You, the shabab over here, these young boys over here, you have skills in you. You have good things in you that you should say, Alhamdulillah, I have these things, and you should utilize them. And don't belittle yourself. Know your worth, know your value, and accredit it to Allah. But that doesn't mean now that you look down on others, or you don't take their advice when they're trying to advise you. And the true izzah, to finish off on this point, where do you get your true honor from? Your true honor comes from al-Islam. وَمِمَّا زَادَنِي شَرَفًا وَتِيهًا وَكِدْتُ بِأَخْمَصِ أَطَأُ الثُّرَيَّا دُخُولِي تَحْتَ قَوْلِكَ يَا عِبَادِي وَأَنْ صَيَّرْتَ لِي أَحْمَدَ نَبِيًّا. These are words of izzah that we've lost in our ummah today. That which increases me in sharaf, in honor, is what? I feel so honored that I feel that I can stamp on the stars. That's what the poet is saying. But what makes you feel so honored? دخولي تحت قولك يا عبادي. The fact that you, Allah, refer to me as Ya Ibadi, and that you have chosen for me Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam as my prophet. This is where true honor lies. And this is why Umar ibn Khattab said, إِنَّا كُنَّا أَذَلَّ قَوْمٍ فَأَعَزَّنَا اللَّهُ بِالْإِسْلَامِ. That we were the most humiliated of people, the lowest people, the Arab. And Allah honored us through what? Through al-Islam. فَمَهْمَا نَطْلُبُ الْعِزَّةِ بِغَيْرِ مَا عَزَّنَا اللَّهُ أَذَلَّنَا اللَّهُ. So if we ever try to seek honor and dignity through other than Islam, then Allah will humiliate you once again. So this is where the true honor lies, and this is where a person really feels his izzah as a man. The fourth quality we want to move on to is al-quwwah, power, strength. Again, this is a natural, desired quality of a man. And this is something that we should understand. Some people maybe go a bit too abroad, and this is what the point we want to address. Again, when we look at the likes of Musa alayhi salam, powerful man. And let's look at our Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. How was he physically as well? He had big, strong hands. His chest was wide. He was wide in his natural physical appearance. He was very strong. His chest came over his belly. So he wasn't someone that was overweight. Now this is of course something that Allah blesses to who He wants. Allah gives to the Muslim and the non-Muslim, just like wealth. Allah gives natural strong appearance to men that are Muslim and men that are non-Muslim. And no doubt this is something that is a quality that is desired. And we should work on that as men. We should be strong, should be healthy, should make sure that you're fit. But also, like for example as well, Talut, when Allah says, وَزَادَهُ بَسْطَةً فِي الْعِلْمِ وَالْجِسْمِ, that Allah gave him two things that a man really wants, so that he can be a king over his people: knowledge and power, strength. But this strength as well, again, what did we say at the very start? What two qualifiers did we say? That each quality needs to come with what? As-sidq ma'allah, sincerity with Allah, and taqwa. And I'll give you an example now of if you don't have that, what happens? If you're strong and you're built and you got all the muscles, and Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, إِنَّهُ لَيَأْتِ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ رَجُلٌ سَمِينٌ عَظِيمٌ. A man will come on Yawm al-Qiyamah in front of Allah, huge, big, built up. Somebody that we would look to and say, amazing how big he is. فَلَا يَزِنُ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ جَنَاحَ بَعُوضَةٍ. But he won't even be valued in front of Allah like that of the wing of a mosquito. That's his value to Allah. Why? Because he didn't have sincerity with Allah. He didn't have taqwa. فَلَا نُقِيمُ لَهُمْ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ وَزْنًا. So Yawm al-Qiyamah, we will not have any value for them. Because the true value lies in what? Those first two qualifiers that we mentioned. As-sidq ma'allah, sincerity with Allah, and taqwa of Allah. And if we look at, for example, on the other hand, you have Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, we know, great Sahabi. You know, he was so skinny, his legs, his shins, there was no meat on his shins. And one time he was climbing and his shins were exposed. The Sahaba, some of the Sahaba, they laughed as a joke to say, look how skinny his legs are. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, أَتَضْحَكُونَ مِن دِقَّةِ سَاقِي. You laughing, you guys are laughing how skinny his legs are? Wallahi, وَالَّذِي نَفْسِي بِيَدِهِ لَهُمَا أَثْقَلُ فِي الْمِيزَانِ مِن جَبَلِ أُحُدٍ. Hands up those of you who've been to Medina. Who's had the opportunity to go to Medina? Leave your hands up if you have seen Jabal Uhud, Mount Uhud. Google it today when you go home. See how massive that mountain is. And the Prophet ﷺ says, you're laughing at his thighs or his shins. Wallahi, his shins, those light shins, those skinny shins, they are heavier on the scales on the Day of Judgment than Mount Uhud. That is how. Why? Why? Is it because he goes to the gym and he's got very strong calves? No. It's because as-sidq ma'Allah, sincerity with Allah. And I'm not belittling, going to the gym is very important. Being strong is very important. But even more important, and what needs to be accompanied with that is what? As-sidq ma'Allah. And no doubt some of the Sahaba were strong and built as well. You had the likes of Umar ibn al-Khattab. He used to tower people. Very big man. And on the other hand you had who? Who was even greater than Umar ibn al-Khattab? Who knows? Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anhu. You know Abu Bakr as-Siddiq? He was a skinny man. He was very skinny. That his lower garment would be very loose. And in his back he had a slight tilt in his back. He couldn't walk upright. But he was ashja' min all of the Sahaba. He was more stronger when it came in the mind with all the rest of the Sahaba. And a person may have all the muscles in his biceps, or the muscles in his biceps may outweigh the muscles of Abu Bakr Siddiq on his body. But wallahi, has not. If all of us together, our hearts together would not match the heart of Abu Bakr Siddiq. Because he had what? As-sidq ma'Allah. All going back to this. Now, I want to, before we move on to the next quality, it's very important that we understand that strength here doesn't only mean physical. This is very important for a man to be physically strong. But what did Allah give to Talut? Not only strength, He also gave him what? Does anybody remember? Ilm, knowledge. He gave him knowledge. And this is why it's also about strength of the mind. And I'm going to quickly go through a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said, Al-mu'minu al-qawi khayrun wa ahabbu ila Allah min al-mu'min al-da'if. The strong believer is more beloved to Allah and better than who? Than the weak believer. وَفِي كُلٍّ خَيْرٍ. And in both of them is good. And then the Prophet ﷺ says, now this is something that's important for those people that want to understand mental strength, how to overcome mental weakness. He says, احرص على ما ينفعك. That be eager and keen on that which benefits you. Be eager to get that which benefits you. Be the best man you can. Try your hardest, work hard. Don't be weak-minded. Don't let obstacles come and make you drop. Get back up if you fall down. And that's why he says, وَاسْتَعِنْ بِاللَّهِ وَلَا تَعْجَزْ. And seek help in Allah and don't give up. Don't give up if you fall down. You tried hard, you didn't succeed, try again tomorrow, get back up. Don't let yourself fall down. Why? Then he says, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, وَإِنْ أَصَابَكَ شَيْئًا فَلَا تَقُلْ لَوْ أَنِّي فَعَلْتْ كَانَ كَذَا وَكَذَا وَلَكِنْ قُلْ قَدَّرَ اللَّهُ وَمَا شَاءَ فَعَلْ. That if something bad happens to you, after you worked so hard, after you tried your best, but you still didn't get what you wanted, then don't say, if only I did this, say rather, Allah has willed it and Allah knows what's best for me. فَإِنَّ لَوْ تَفْتَحُ بَابَ عَمَلَ الشَّيْطَانِ. That saying if, what does it do? It opens the door for shaitan. And that's why it's very important that what differentiates us between us men and the man who is a disbeliever, who's got the qualities of this man, strength of mind. What happens? Yes, he will try his hardest. Yes, he will work hard. Yes, he will do everything. And he'll be so committed and determined. But when things go down, and he's thinking to himself, I'm doing everything I possibly can. I'm taking control of the situation. But I didn't get the car. I didn't get the money. I didn't get the wife. I didn't get this. What is the difference? The believer says, قَدَّرَ اللَّهُ مَا شَاءَ فَعَلْ. That Allah has willed it, and I know that something better for me is there. Whereas that one person, he's led to وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ, suicide and things like that, depression and all these things. And this is why, from a man's point of view, the strength, it lies in having that tawakkul in Allah as well. And let's move on inshallah to the next quality, and this is the quality of ash-shaja'ah. Ash-shaja'ah means bravery. And this is very important because even before Islam in Jahiliyyah, they used to see bravery as the bread and butter of a man. If you don't have bravery, then you're not a man. And when we look at to the men that were complete, the young boy, mashallah, who read the beautiful recitation, he read about our father, Ibrahim alayhi salam. Look at the shaja'ah that he had when he was a young boy, like one of the young boys in our masjid today. He comes and he smashes the idols because he has sincerity for Allah. Smashes the idols, he's not worried about, he's not fearful of what the people are going to do to him. He's not fearful for their false gods, because he believes in Tawheed and he has sincerity with Allah. And when we look at the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this amazing hadith, Ali ibn Abi Talib said, when the ishtad al-harb, you know, when they were fighting and things got really serious and things were not looking too good, ittaqayna bi Rasulillahi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that we would hide behind the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, not hide, but he would be the one that is shielding us. And Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam would be the closest to the enemy. He was the most bravest of all men. And I'll give you one example in the Battle of Hunayn. When the Muslims were attacking and they were in a valley, which means they were in a lower part of the ground, and around them, the mushrikeen were with their arrows, shooting the arrows down at them. And of course, like any army would do, you'd be fleeing, you'd be in confusion, and everybody's fleeing around, except for Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that brave man, that no one is more braver than. And what is he saying? As Sufyan ibn al-Harith was saying, I'm holding on to the reins of his mule. I'm holding on, because everybody's running around, confusion. Arrows coming left, right, and center. And then Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam is thabit. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam is firm, and he's standing firm, holding his ground. And he says, Ana nabiyul la kadhib, ana ibn Abdul Muttalib. I am the prophet, no lie about it. I am the grandson of Abdul Muttalib. This was his way of showing that bravery to bring back his army in place. And also we have the likes of Ali ibn Abi Talib. We know in the battle of Ahzab or Khandaq, the battle of the trench, when one of the most fierce warriors of the Arabian Peninsula, he jumped over the ditch, and he wants to challenge the Muslims. And Ali ibn Abi Talib comes and he says, I'm going to take you. Come, bring it. Let's sort this out. He's not offering for a wrestling match, by the way. He's not saying let's have a boxing match. This is life and death. This is metal and flesh and blood. And Ali ibn Abi Talib, look at his shaja'ah, look at his bravery. And we had the likes of Khalid ibn al-Walid, Sayfullah al-Maslul, the unsheathed sword of Allah. What would he do when he'd fight the Persians and the Romans, who were skilled and they had all types of weapons? He didn't care what they had. He'd come as a commander and general of the Muslim army. He'd come right to the front and he would go and say, Hal min Mubariz. Can you imagine this? Who is there? Who dares challenge me and duel with me? Imagine you going in with, I don't know, the UFC fighters or the boxing, all these famous boxing people, and you saying, who can duel me? Who dares duel with me? And Khalid ibn al-Walid, this is what we call shaja'ah, because it was done truly for the sake of Allah. And Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi and Asad al-Sahra, Umar al-Mukhtar, the list goes on. The recent times we had in Umar al-Mukhtar in Libya, before many of us now, maybe over 50 years ago or so, they were on horseback and they're repelling the Italian colonialists on horseback against tanks and armored vehicles. And this is because of what? No man can do this. You can be as brave as you want, but you can't do this unless you have a sidq ma'Allah. You have what? Sincerity with Allah. And quality number 6 is al-karam. Al-karam is about generosity. And again, we go back to Ibrahim alayhi salam, who started off a great sunnah. When the angels came to him in the form of strangers, what did he do? People he doesn't know, but they're guests. He wants to look after them. He wants to be hospitable. فَرَاغَ إِلَىٰ أَهْلِهِ فَجَاءَ بِعِجْلٍ سَمِينٍ. That he went to his family and he brought back a fattened calf to slaughter to give them food. Brings a whole calf to feed his guests. And from this, the culture of many of us where we come from, in looking after the guests by slaughtering the sheep or the goat or the cow when they come to do honor of them, to have karam and diyafa. And this is also something, there's many things when it comes to this in terms of being charitable. It covers everything, the word karam. Like for example, the Prophet ﷺ, when he said, I want to quickly move on to the next one, and Nabi ﷺ, he said that you cannot envy a man except for 2 men. One man who reads the Quran day and night, and one man who Allah has given him wealth and he spends it day and night on others and in the way of Allah. This is the man that you can be jealous of, meaning I wish to be like that man. So one point just before we move on to this one, which is a very important point, and especially for our shabab who are on these social media platforms like TikTok and YouTube and things like that. You see these people that they record themselves. They take the phone, selfie, get some money and they give it to a poor person. First of all, that's so demeaning to that poor person. That, you know, he, as it is, he doesn't want to be in that state. And now you're filming him and say, oh, look what I'm doing. This is not generosity. Because we said that a qualifier of these qualities is what? The determiner, whether this is a true quality of a man is what? It's to be sincere with Allah. Is that being sincere when you're posting it out? And that's why some people, we have some of the shabab asking, you know, this guy on YouTube or this guy on TikTok, he's always giving, he's not a Muslim, he doesn't believe in Allah, he's an atheist, and he's always giving money to, you know, a charity and giving to the poor people. Will Allah not reward him? And this reminds me of Hatim al-Ta'i. Hatim al-Ta'i at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, he was a man known in Jahiliyyah for all types of good. He would do sulh bayn al-nas, he'd rectify between the people. He would be so generous when you come to his house and visit him, but he died upon shirk. So his son Uday ibn Hatim, he accepted Islam and he comes to the Prophet ﷺ and he said, my father did all types of goodness. Will he not be rewarded? Same question that these shabab are asking about these people that do these things. And the Prophet ﷺ said, and Nabi ﷺ, remember, who doesn't speak from his desires, and Nabi ﷺ, who doesn't speak from his thought, but he speaks from what? From wahi, from revelation from Allah. He speaks from the one who sees inside the people's hearts. And Nabi ﷺ said to him, Inna abaka talaba shay'an fa'asabahu. Your father, he sought something. He was after something. And he got that thing. What was it that he was after? Was he after reward with Allah? Did he want Yawm al-Qiyamah? No, he didn't believe in that. He wanted people to remember him. And fi'lan, indeed, that's what happened. People remembered him after that. If somebody wanted to praise you for your generosity back then, they would compare you to Hatim al-Ta'i. So he got what he wanted. But he didn't want the reward, so he won't get the reward. And this is why it's important that we as believers, when we want to be charitable, when we want to be generous, what does Allah say in the Quran about the people of Jannah? وَيُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ مِسْكِينًا وَيَتِيمًا وَأَسِيرًا. That they feed food to those people that are poor, orphans and the captives. And even though they are in need, even though you need that money, you need that food, but you give it to your brother. And they, لَا نُرِيدُ مِنْكُمْ جَزَاءً وَلَا شُكُورًا إنما نطعمكم لوجه الله لا نريد منكم جزاء ولا شكورا. Why are we feeding you? Is it so we can get views on TikTok? Is it so people can say that I'm generous? I'm feeding you and I'm giving you wealth because for the sake of Allah. And I don't want from you to say thank you. You don't say this to them. This is lisan al-hal. You're not saying this is how they feel in their heart. I'm not saying it because I want you to say thank you. You shouldn't even say make dua for me or say to him, you should say to me Jazakullahu Khairun. You give it and you go like a ghost. In and out. That's the true meaning of sincerity. And what happens to those people? فَوَقَاهُمُ اللَّهُ شَرَّ ذَلِكَ الْيَوْمِ وَلَقَّاهُمْ نَظْرَةً وَسُرُورًا. Those are the people who are going to get Jannah. Allah is going to save them from the hardships of that day. Quality number 7, and this is a very important quality, al-ghira, and related to this, al-qawama. Al-qawama and al-ghira. And I'm going to explain these terms very briefly. Al-ghira or al-ghira is when you have something, there's no word in the English language for it, to be honest. But some people translate it as protective jealousy. So when you have your women folk, your wives, your daughters, your sisters, those in your family that you are responsible for, you are protective over them. You make sure that when they leave the house, they leave in an appropriate manner with hijab. You're not you don't allow them to free mix. You don't encourage that to happen. This is something that a man should have within him innate. It's not insecurity. When does it become insecurity? When you start doubting them. When you start doubting why they're going out. Oh, you're going out because of this. When you have that doubt, that's insecurity. But ghayra, this is a quality of a man. This is masculinity. Now, I'm not talking about when some brothers who are tested with their families, their women become rebellious and living in this country, they have no control. And they will go against them, not listen to them, not obey them. Go against their fathers, go against their husbands. Those people will make dua for them that Allah grant them patience and Allah reward them. Because it's not easy to have that test. But what we're talking about is a man who's the youth. What do we mean by the youth? He's happy about it. And he wants it to happen. He'll tell his wife, don't go out unless you wear proper makeup. This man has no qualities of manliness in him. That's not masculinity. Or he lets his wife take pictures and post it on he encourages her to do so. So this is what we mean by ghayra. And the other word that we talked about is qawama. And I don't want to go into this because it's a topic of itself, but it's from the ayah where Allah says in the Quran, الرِّجَالُ قَوَّامُونَ عَلَى النِّسَاءِ بِمَا فَضَّلَ اللَّهُ بَعْضَهُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ. That Allah has, the men are protectors and maintainers of the women. This is something we're not shy about. The feminists can cry till tomorrow, it's not going to change in the Quran. It's going to remain there. And it's something actually that it offers security to the women. This is why I don't understand. A true woman will value this quality in a man. That he is yura'iha, that he protects her, maintains her, looks after her. He makes sure that she is protected from all the evils of society around her. And he looks after her. She doesn't have to go out and work, she doesn't have to go out and do this. He will provide for her. This is the quality of a man. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ said, خَيْرُكُمْ لِأَهْلِهِ وَأَنَا خَيْرُكُمْ لِأَهْلِي. The best of you is the one who's best to his wives, and I am the best of you to my wife. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ, he maintained his women, he looked after them, but in a way that was with kindness and with love, and he wasn't abusive. You know, when you maintain something and you look after something, you don't have to be rough and rigid. As when the Nabi ﷺ, we know that when he was with his wives, he would sometimes play with them as well. Imagine, this man is a general. This man, alayhi salatu wasalam, is a warrior. We know how brave he is. But when there's time of peace, look at how he was. He's walking with his companions, maybe back from war, Allah knows best. And he's telling them, تقدموا, go ahead. And he's with his wife, Aisha radiallahu anha. And he said, let's have a race. Imagine, he's coming, he's a warrior, he's a general, he's a leader of his people. Yet he makes time to look after his women. And this is a very important point here that we need to understand. And another point I want to mention, that just because you maintain your woman, just because you are responsible for her, and no doubt your rights are greater. The right of a husband is greater than the rights of the wife. Why? Because he's responsible for her. Likewise, Islam is just. That doesn't mean a man in every case has greater rights than a woman. No. The mother has greater rights than the father because of her responsibility and what she has to do for those children. But the man, the husband, he has greater rights. Why? Because of his responsibility towards the wife. And that doesn't mean now that you belittle her and that you don't take her advice, you don't listen to her, you don't try to please her. The Prophet ﷺ, what happened in Sulh al-Hudaybiyah, what happened in the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, what did he do? He told the companions, it seemed unfair. They were coming to Mecca, they wanted to perform the Hajj, and now the treaty says you can't come this year, come back next year. The Sahaba are upset, they're in Ihram, we don't want to go back, we're so close to Mecca. And Nabi ﷺ tell them 3 times, take off your Ihram, khalas, no Hajj. And then he goes back to his tent and he's upset. And who speaks to who? His wife Salama. And Salama advises the Nabi ﷺ. And she says to him, you go, don't speak to anyone. You go, you shave your head, you slaughter the thing, and you come out of Ihram, and don't speak to anyone. And Nabi ﷺ listened to her advice. He went, and fi'lan, what did the people do? They followed when they seen the Prophet ﷺ do this. The point here to take is that the Prophet ﷺ didn't belittle her advice. And whenever he saw somebody have good counsel, he took it from them. So, and just one last point as well on this is that Nabi ﷺ, he said once to Anjasha. Anjasha was a boy that was riding the camels, and on the camels were the women or the wives of the Prophet ﷺ. And he was a bit rough, like how some of us when we're driving. When I was on the way, I was getting told I was driving a bit rough. We sometimes like to do that. Maybe, we're in a rush or something. And Nabi ﷺ tells his boy, who's in it, it's got his innate in him, he wants to be a bit, he wants to rush a bit. So he's rushing the camels. And he says to him, رويدا يا أنجشة. Calm down, slow down يا أنجشة. لا تكسر القوارير. Don't break the glass bottles. Talking to his wives, about his wives. Now be easy with them. Go easy on them. Treat them with gentleness and kindness. And this leads me on now to the last quality that we finish off with, al-hilm. Al-hilm, وما أدراك ما الحلم. Hilm is such a beautiful quality, and it's a very, these people now that are talking about masculinity, they forget about this quality. It's a very important quality. And it's a quality that, again, when we translate it, it would mean that you hold yourself in anger. When we talked about holding yourself at the time of anger, and not trying to seek a revenge and retribution, not trying to be the one that I want to get my back on this person, and being forbearant, having the empathy and patience when dealing with others. And Allah mentions this in the Quran. We can translate hilm to وَالْكَاظِمِينَ الْغَيْظِ وَالْعَافِينَ عَنِ النَّاسِ, that those who hold their anger and they forgive the people. Now, forgiving the people, when somebody's done something wrong to you, for you to forgive them is one thing. But for you to forgive them when you have power over that person, that's what a real man is. I'll give you an example. The Prophet ﷺ, in Fath Mecca, in the conquest of Mecca. Do you remember how he was in Mecca? When he was in Mecca, what happened to him? Abused, ridiculed, mocked, tried to assassinate him, killed his loved ones, tortured him, injured him. They did all these types of things to him, lied about him. Character assassination, all these things they did to him. And now the tables have turned. He's conquered all of Mecca and he says to Quraysh, what do you think I'm going to do with you today? He's in a position of power, he can do what he wants. There's no human rights convention or anything like that at that time to stop him from doing anything. What did he say? اذهبوا فأنتم الطلقاء. Go, you're all free. Go, you're all free after you abused and you ridiculed us and you injured us, you killed us. But today, no bloodshed. Yusuf alayhi salam, similarly, when he was thrown, bullied by his other brothers, young boy thrown into the well, he had his chance to take revenge. He's become the minister of all of Egypt. The minister of all of Egypt. And his brothers are at his mercy. What does he say to them? لا تثريب عليكم اليوم. There is no blame on you today. يغفر الله لكم. Allah will forgive you. May Allah forgive you for what you've done. That's what I call man. That's what we call hilm. That when at the time of power, you're not a tyrant, but you're compassionate. And you forgive when you have the urge to want to take revenge. And I want to finish off with this one, where the Prophet ﷺ, amazing, in the battle of, I think it was Uhud, he was bloodied. His clothes are soaked with blood. I want you to picture this. His clothes are soaked with blood. His teeth are broken. His face is torn. And he's injured and wounded. And his people, they're throwing things at him and hitting him. And he's falling and he gets up. Anas ibn Malik says, I see him raise his hand. What would me and you do in that situation? What would me and you do in that situation? Raising his hands to Allah. He says, Allahumma ghfir li qawmi fa innahum la ya'lamun. So, oh Allah, forgive my people. Guide my people, because they don't know. They don't know what's better for them. They don't know that they're harming their messenger of Allah. And this was what we call rujula. This is what we call being a man. Alayhi salatu wassalam. And in conclusion, these are some attributes that I've decided to share with you. These 8 attributes or qualities of being a man. But it's very important that at the end of the day, for you to be a high quality, or what they call a high value man, then you need to have these 2 qualifiers. You need to have these 2 what? Qualifiers or determinants. Number 1, what did we say? As-sidq ma'allah. Sincerity with Allah. And number 2, taqwa. Having taqwa of Allah. And inshallah, to finish off, I know we've gone maybe slightly over the time, but to finish off inshallah with amazing narration of Umar ibn al-Khattab. Umar ibn al-Khattab was once with his people, with his advisors like we are today. And he said, tamannaw. He said to them, wish for whatever you want to wish. And some of them said, we wish that this room was filled with gold so we can spend it in the way of Allah. Some of them said, we wish that this room is full of jewels, we can spend it in the way of Allah. And Umar al-Khattab is not happy. He says, tamannaw, wish. They said, we don't know, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen. What do you want to say? What do you wish for? He said, as for me, atamanna law muli'at rijalan. He said, as for me, I wish this room was filled with men. مثل عبيدة بن الجراح أمين هذه الأمة مثل معاذ بن جبل مثل سالم مثل حذيفة بن اليمان. Look at the men he's mentioning. عبيدة بن الجراح, Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah, who was the trustee of this ummah. And Mu'adh ibn Jabal, who was the scholar of this ummah. And Hudhayfah ibn al-Yaman. Hudhayfah ibn al-Yaman, who was who? He was the Aminu Sirr al-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the one who kept the secrets of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. These were the men that Umar ibn Khattab wanted for his ummah. Let me see some of these questions, inshallah. Okay, so the first one, inshallah, this is a very good one. The effect of masjid on masculinity. We said that Allah has answered this question. That in the houses of Allah, in the masajid of Allah, it's filled with who? Rijal, men who are not distracted by the dunya, and they focus on iqam as-salah wa ita' az-zakah. And they focus on the salah and giving zakah. And this doesn't, the money and the wealth of the dunya doesn't distract them from this just cause. Is it okay for a man to show emotion? We mentioned in Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam the hadith where his son had died. It's very important here that what do we mean by showing emotion? If you become upset and your eyes become teared and you're upset in that manner, then of course, obviously depending on is it a worthy cause to be upset about. But even if you get upset, does that mean now that it's about how you react? This is what we're talking about. This is what we're saying, that how you control yourself. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, what did he say? He said, my heart is upset, my eyes weep, but I'm not going to say, I'm going to control my tongue. I'm going to control my tongue. I'm not going to say, why is this happening to me for? Why is that? No, I'm going to control myself. I have good thoughts about Allah. Is it manliness taking selfies? I don't think I'm going to answer that question, because it depends on what was happening in that scenario. I mean, what is he doing? We talked about, I don't know, it's up to you to decide, but we talked about muru'ah. Muru'ah is that quality where you have your own self-respect and things like that. If you look back at that selfie and you say, you know what, that's a bit of an embarrassing photo, then maybe you shouldn't have taken that. Allahu A'lam. It's not something that you can say, it's not a man. Okay, this is a very good one at the end. Qualities that should women want in a man for marriage, vice versa. Again, you know, with a lot of these qualities, you'll notice one thing, and this is what the ulama, they say, when they mention qualities of a man, they say, there's rujula, that was exclusive for men, for the male, and there's rujula bima'na futuwa, which means like, you see, man in Arabic, rajul, it means like kamal, it means perfection. So a woman can also adorn some of these qualities. Like for example, muru'ah. A woman is not going to do something silly and foolish that makes her image look low. So these are things that obviously, these qualities that we mentioned, a lot of them, when you think about them and you ponder over them, they can also be at times for women as well. And it reminds me of the hadith, and Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he said that the woman is married for 4 reasons: her beauty, her wealth, her lineage, and her deen. فَاظْفِرْ ذات الدين أو بذات الدين تربت يدك. That, you know, choose the one that is upon the religion, that one who is steadfast in the religion, and you are successful, inshallah. So this applies even vice versa. Inshallah, I think that's all. Yeah, I just want to finish off with one point, inshallah. What time would you pray Asr? Is it still some time? Just one last point, inshallah, and it's a very important one, and I want the shabab to focus with me today, because we had a similar issue, like my generation and at that kind of generation level. What happened was, you know, when we have extremes. So for example, when we talked about the extreme of feminism, you have the other extreme of masculinity, which is needed. Now what happens is, when you have one extreme, what the other extreme comes to defend, and when they speak up, most of the times it sounds like they're saying the right things, and it's true. But be careful to align yourself as a Muslim. Be careful to align yourself with that group if they're not upon Islam, because they're going to say things that don't represent you as a Muslim. And I'll give you an example of this. When 9/11 happened, you had the groups like Al-Qaeda and the Khawarij, the people who started killing innocent civilians. How did they start off? You had one extreme of Muslims that were not doing anything. They looked at, for example, oh, Muslims are being killed here, Muslims are being bombed here. Of course, we all felt that. We all felt that pain of our brothers and sisters being hurt. So naturally, when somebody comes up and starts speaking about these issues, we listen. And we say, hold on, that's true. And what did they do when they started off Al-Qaeda? They didn't start off by saying, oh, we're going to kill all the, this person and start killing innocent people. They didn't start off with that message. No. They started off by saying things that everybody wanted to hear. That look at this oppression that's happening to our Muslim brothers and sisters. Then they use that. Then when people align with them, oh, now that you're aligned with us, our true objective is what? We want to kill innocent civilians, which is not to do anything with Islam. Likewise, today this same thing is happening. Extremism of feminism is taken over most countries now. With, women, empowering women and making men effeminate men. So what happens is, when somebody talks about the natural things of a man, these qualities that we mentioned, we automatically open our ears and say, that's true. That's a very important point that he's mentioning. But be careful, because that tends to go to the other extreme, and they say things that is dhulm on the other side. So always remember, and this is why I mentioned in the prologue, if you remember, that our religion is what? What is it? It's a religion of balance, middle path, in between the two extremes. هذا وصلي وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.